back.
Thank you again, Dr. Fauci. I want to thank you for coming here today. I, again, truly appreciate your willingness to come voluntarily before this select committee for both your transcribed interview and the hearing today. This hearing was an opportunity to learn about our COVID-19 response and how we can improve and do better. And we did some good things during that, and I'll cite Operation Warp Speed as one of them. It's also an opportunity to more closely examine the office in which you served, because there seemed to be some significant wrongdoings that took place, and I believe that we can make changes and prevent that from happening in the future. That's my goal. It's an opportunity to take a close look about the processes and the procedures in place in our health institutions in the United States. That's our job as oversight in Congress. That's what we're supposed to do. I don't know what playbook some are talking about, because it's been my goal as chairman, and I think you've seen the staff behaving the same way, to take a hard look at the facts so that we can do better in the future. I know that at the end of the transcribed interview, not only during the interview, we talked about other types of vaccines we may be able to create, mucosal vaccines, maybe inhibitors of furin, if there's a furin cleavage site as part of the vaccine. I appreciated that conversation so very much. And at the end, you thanked me for the fairness. And we had the opportunity to share a lot that day. I think what I'm most concerned about as we go forward as a country and from our agencies is that we can be trusted and that we are better in our messaging and talk about clarity. Dr. McCormick today talked about what it was like actually treating COVID patients day in and day out. I had recommended early on that America needed to hear more from doctors that were treating COVID patients, what they were seeing, what was working, what was not working. I compared it to General Schwarzkopf during the Gulf War. Everyone tuned in every night to hear what General Schwarzkopf had to say, not the politician, but what the general in charge had to say. And I think that was important, the one who was in the trenches. But look, we've gone back and forth on the definition of gain of function. I think it's been pretty clear what was you said was on your mind, and there were two different definitions, if you will, a generic definition and an operative regulatory definition. But so, when we go through this, what America hears is that you say NIH did not fund, and Dr. Tabak said NIH did fund. Clarity matters. I think it would have helped when you were in front of Dr. Paul in the Senate, if you were clear about what you meant. The American people had never heard of gain of function until this came about. Clarity matters. When we conducted great trials on the vaccines, I thought they were phenomenal. Normally you have 8,000 to 10,000 people. We had about 40,000 people in each one of the trials. And what we knew from the trials is that, one, it saved a lot of lives. That's one thing. But we also knew that if you got vaccinated, you could still get COVID. We didn't make that clear to the American people, in my mind. And that you could still get sick. And so if someone stands up, not you, but if someone stands up and says, if you get vaccinated, you're never going to go to the ICU and you're not going to die. Well, that was still happening. So where was the messaging? I wish you would have corrected that right then and there. President says, oh, maybe we just inject bleach. Well, some people maybe thought that was serious. We made it clear it was not. And that was important. But here we have Operation Warp Speed, which I know firsthand you were working on, and you were kind enough to work with the Doctors Caucus to explain what was going on with Operation Warp Speed. And we have a presidential candidate who says, well, if that's developed, I'm not taking it. And I'm paraphrasing. And then takes it. The American public deserve a lot better from their government. And what should have been a 9/11 moment for this country, this pandemic, was turned into a political nightmare. We need to do better. These are agnostic issues, not political. And I think from what we have learned from you in the TI and here today, there's a lot of things that we can do better. And the grant process being one of them. I mean, if you, look, when I sign a prescription, I'm responsible for it. Somebody needs to be responsible. And if you're signing for grants but not responsible for it, you just sign it, then you're not responsible for the dollars that are going out. And then maybe it's the advisory committee that needs to be signing the grant so that there's some level of responsibility and responsibility for compliance. I think that's one of the biggest lessons learned through all this. We can do better. America's a great country. We can fix our problems. But we have to take a good hard look at what we did, what we didn't do, be honest with ourselves, be better in our messaging to the American people, especially when it comes to health. And that's why I felt it was very important that we don't do things like mandates, but let patients have a conversation with the doctor that they know and trust, and make sure that we're getting the doctors all the information and data that they need. From adverse effects of the vaccine, which we've always done, adverse effects of the vaccine, to what the vaccine can and can't do, whether you're at risk or not at risk, what are your risks. Those are personal conversations that need to take place. And I look forward to trying to establish a system that does a better job at that. I'm going to conclude and just say thank you once again, Dr. Fauci. Matter of fact, I'd be glad to have more off-the-record conversations about things we can do in the future, drugs we may be able to develop, treatments we may be able to provide, and vaccines we may be able to produce. And so if you're amenable, I might reach out to you for that, and other scientists as well that may have varying opinions. So again, thank you again for being the witness today. With that and without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days within which to submit materials and to submit additional written questions for the witnesses, which will be forwarded to the witnesses for their response. If there's no further business, without objection, the Select Subcommittee